You are listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul. Our theme music is a clip of Summer Nights by the Eric Jones Trio. It's provided by our friend Mark Chesanout, who plays with the Eric Jones Trio every Thursday and Sunday at Good Times Jazz Bar downtown.
Hey everyone, welcome to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and I have the pleasure of being in City Market with William Kwamena-Poh. Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course, it's so exciting to be here. And if anyone's ever been in City Market, his studio, it's like a flagship place. It's in the south side of the artist studios, and you go up the stairs and it's right there. He has a beautiful light-filled studio, and it actually has 2 levels in it, so it's like a home.
Thanks. Yeah,
it's great.
I like it.
Okay, so I want to read a bit from your website, and then we'll get started. So William, you're born in Ghana, and you came to the U.S. because your father got a position as a history professor at Talladega College in Alabama as a Fulbright scholar. Very cool. And then you were introduced to the work of a teacher there, James Huff, and he did huge portraits of African American women, and that's what really inspired you. And now in your present work, you describe the subject as your work as communicating to diverse communities and cultures about a people who've been disenfranchised and viewed negatively throughout the years. And a lot of your work, you're depicting Ghanaians? Am I saying that right? Okay.
Yes.
Ghanaian fishermen, market women, and children, right?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So we'll just start way back. So when you first came to the U.S. from Ghana, were you imagining that you were going to be here forever? Was your family thinking that?
You know, initially it never dawned on me, but when I left, because I was a prankster, and I was really not going to. I don't think my dad was a good man. Because, he knew that what I was doing was not going to get me anywhere.
Oh, he sounds like he was a serious scholar.
Well, he was.
Yeah.
So rest in peace, he was. So he wanted me to come and be an artist. My grandfather was an artist. He died before my dad was even 2 years or even a year old.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So when he found that I had he found out about my grandfather's talent through uncles and distant relatives, and they told him he was a music teacher and all this stuff. So that part I wish I had the music part, but I'll take the art.
You got part of it, yeah.
Yeah. I think I put in the rhythm and the pieces. So when my dad saw the little bit and wanted to just nurture it, and that's a college professor, he had access to students who could, or professors who could find people to help me. So there was one of my uncles, because my father was the only child directly, so we had distant uncles, was also teaching there, and he was an art teacher, art professor. So he put me in front of this, what do you call it, bamboo grove, and told me to sketch it, and I'm like,
oh, that was your initial
project? I was so angry. Yeah, little kid. I'm like, why am I doing this stuff? Wow.
Yeah. So they were trying to harness you into something.
Well, he was, and I did not, initially, I was not resistant because as a middle child, I felt like I was useless. I felt like I didn't get nothing.
Okay. There's some real birth order stuff going on.
Like, you're the third child, or you're in the middle. My oldest son inherits the father.
Yeah.
Gets everything.
The first one is really under a microscope.
It's like a spare.
Oh yeah, you were the. So you were the Harry?
Yes,
okay.
spare.
For the family.
And then my sisters after me, and of course my father only had one girl, so
yeah,
that's it.
So she got attention.
Yeah. And then the last born got all his names, so it's like.
So you were kind of wild and mischievous.
Yes.
How old were you when you guys moved to Alabama?
I was 20.
Oh, okay, you were older, right?
Yeah, I was older. I mean, I went to high school. I flunked high school art, and my dad is like, "No, you're gonna take this again." So he found me some tutors, and they helped me straighten me out. One Albert Kupalampo back in Ghana, his main thing was that you would not use a eraser ever again. And so it's like when I'm sketching and I have an eraser in my hand, you take it out, because his mentality is, if there's an eraser in your hand, you think I can make a mistake and I can correct it. But his thing is, you don't even have to think that way.
You don't have to think that it's a mistake.
Yes. Take all your lines and blend them all together, make them all work.
Okay.
And just move them around and just work it together and let it flow. And so, yeah, he taught me and helped me, just get my crazy brain focused. And so I took the art exam again, on a scale of 1 to 9. This is called the O levels, which they have in
Oh yeah, it's
UK.
very like British style.
Right.
Yeah.
And so on a scale of 1 to 9, 9 meaning fail. The first time I took it, I got a 7. And so
9 is like you can't draw a circle.
You can't do nothing. 7 means that you just, And so the second time I took it, I got to 2, which is
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, it was great. So I kept working. I was doing part-time works in a library on campus, and then when he got the scholarship, he decided to take his first 2 kids. That's it, which was like, whoa.
Did you take your mom too, or?
Well, my mom and dad were separated.
Oh, okay. So
that's why he had 2 tickets, because he had a ticket for his wife and a child. But because he was single father, a divorced father.
Yeah.
He took 2 tickets, so he used for his 2 oldest kids.
Wow, so not even all the kids went. You just.
Yeah, there were 4 of us, so just like the first 2, which was shocking. That's when I realized the old man did not discriminate. He was like, the first 2. That's it.
So half the family just stayed in Ghana, and you just went on 2 different life paths at that point.
Well, because he was on a Fulbright, he was also on a sabbatical from the university, so his house was still there. So for a year, he still had, he still was teaching. So we still lived on campus, so the house was there, so the family was there, they lived there.
That must have been, to go from Ghana to Alabama must have been a crazy culture shock. How...
It was, but if you've never been here before, it's an upgrade, because the difference in Alabama is that all the streets are paved, most of them. In Ghana, it's like, not all the streets are paved. The main streets are paved, but the side roads and on the campus, everything was paved.
Okay.
But outside of campus, not every street was paved. So you saw a different side, and then when you get here, there are cars everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
People have phones everywhere, every day.
So you're 20 and you get to Alabama, and then how did you make your way to Savannah?
Well, through travels. I graduated I went to Talladega, and I was going to be an artist, and then they somehow decided that the art program was not going to be funded, so they canceled it. So I ended up majoring, I'm like, whatever it is, I got to get some papers. So I got my degree in sociology.
In sociology, okay. So you'd taken some art classes, and then you got a college degree.
I took a lot of electives in art at the beginning, because I was hoping that I was going to do that.
Did you take from this one professor, James Huff, who you were inspired by?
Yes,
cool.
James was there for the first 2 years, and he was also a tennis player. So we played tennis all kinds of times during the day, after class and the evenings, but he was always educating me. Always show me the light.
Yeah, he was your real mentor.
Yes. So he taught me how to do, see light and then use diagonal. So it was really great. And so once he left the school, they had a new art professor come in, and then they just did not fund the art program the way they wanted to fund it for a degree. So I'm like, you know what? I just want to get out. So let me find what I have the most electives in. And just
that's smart.
Graduate.
Sociology is fascinating.
Yeah, well, that's what an art with the work. That's what you do. You're actually doing the study, because I'm talking about Ghana, but I'm also doing a sociological and not a social study through paintings, sharing that through what I see, so that people can see my vision, but of what I see the society to be.
Yeah, and you just recently on Instagram posted some of your old pieces from college, and you were doing just portraits back then too. You've always just been doing people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's fascinating, because the bamboo grove should have taught me better. It is, but it's moccasins are.
Oh, the intricacies of the market.
Yes, they're so serious. I don't want to be painting for 5 years on one piece. Maybe 6 months, 8 months, but my God.
It's like those Renaissance painters when you go see paintings, and they're miles wide, and they have a billion details and horses and everything. And you're like, how?
And they
how
also
did you
list.
stick with this?
They also list the how long it took. It's like it started in 1625 and finished in 1627.
And they had a benefactor the whole time.
Ooh. Yes.
People had a different level of attention span back then.
Mm-hmm.
Their brains were different.
Back then, I was still innovative. I remember I had a meeting with some of these college teachers and administrators, and formed a little corporation or some group like that, where each one of them invested so much money, and I had prints made of my work, and give them back dividends in terms of prints and stuff, everything like that.
Yeah.
So that was the seed money that they invested in, you know.
Oh, it was like that's what is that called? Crowdfunding.
Something
You did
like
an
that.
early version of that.
Yeah. Like going to, you know, what do you call it?
Like those websites, where you pledge some money and then
Yeah.
the person is able to produce their thing and then you get a little thing out of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Wow.
so
That is very innovative.
Yeah. You know, because you figured it had to have a way to do this, and I was able to do that, and I did a few small shows. Birmingham was not far. It was always nice to go to Birmingham.
Yeah.
And I did some art fairs around campus and around the cities around. And I remember one show we did, I got best of show. My college professor got, I think, like 3rd place, and he says, well,
Wow.
you know, so it was, you know, I was able to really, because I used to do pointillism.
Really?
Ooh.
You did like human figures in pointillism?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Drove me crazy. That's why I ultimately said, you know, let me go and paint, find brushes and paint.
Yeah.
Because I just could not see 5 months of working on a piece. It's like, you lost your mind. 5
Yeah,
months.
also, and you
but you
can't-
see, when you're in college, it doesn't matter.
Oh, that was
You
in
got
college.
that.
Yeah, you're experimenting.
Yeah. Oh.
Okay, so you got out of school with your sociology degree, and then
Yes.
you traveled
Then
around.
I moved. Well, we got out, and one of my buddies said, "Hey, let's go to DC." So I was like, "Great! So
Oh, cool.
let's move to DC." I think I got just a bag with all my art and everything. And on the way, we stopped in Atlanta, and we stopped at this lady's gallery, and I showed her some of my work because I was so excited and everything. This was like 84, 80, something like that.
Okay.
And she's like, I can't do nothing with this stuff. I'm like, this is junk.
Did you have like a portfolio full of
Yeah.
drawings? Kind
Yeah.
of?
She's like,
Yeah.
this is junk. I can't
Aw.
show nothing. And I'm like, I'll be back. Yeah, I'll be back.
What do you think of the work that you showed her at that time?
Oh, I mean, I still have some old pieces from back then. It was okay.
Yeah.
You know, but it was not complete, you know, but you know how you are. When you're young, you think you sit on top of the world. You think that your work is so brilliant. It's like,
Yeah.
it's okay, you know, but it's, you know, I have people come in and they want to show me their work. It's the same thing. You can't cut them down. You have to, you know, uplift or reinforce them. It's like, yeah, this is
Right.
good. So I left. I went to DC. I worked in a gallery for 1 year. At that time, I'd done one piece that I thought was phenomenal. Which,
Yeah.
you know, was great. Also.
Like a real completed painting.
Yeah. So I did a few pieces, but I worked in this gallery for about eight months, or maybe a little bit over that, because I worked from 80. Yeah, it was all 84.
Where in DC was the
It was
gallery?
in Adams Morgan.
Okay,
Yes.
I lived in DC for
Oh,
a
you
couple years too. Adams, Oregon, so that would be very fun.
Oh, it is
yeah.
still fun. I go over there to Ethiopian restaurants.
Yeah, the Ethiopian.
And then there's
Yeah.
a Ghanaian restaurant, Bokum, that I still go to right there. You get to know artists and their differences and the nuances and stuff like that. Joe Holston, Paul Goodnight, all these great African American artists. And they inspired me. They told me, but you know, you got to build a portfolio. But it's like, you know, well,
Yeah.
I'm working right here, but yeah.
So you had an art studio and you were working in an art gallery. So
No, I didn't have a studio. I just had
Okay.
the gallery, and then
Okay.
I had a 1-bedroom. I had a bedroom in this guy's house. You know, it was
Yeah.
a bedroom, and so and that was because his mom was a graduate of Talladega College, so she got me hooked
Yeah,
up.
so here you go.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So you graduated from college and then you get a job in an art gallery in a
Right.
big city like that. So that must have been so educational for you.
It was,
Yeah.
it was because it taught me how to work. Basically, was, you know, I would go to work from 11 till 6, go home, go to sleep till about 12 or 1 o'clock or whatever it is, and get up and work till like 5 o'clock, go to sleep for another hour, 2
Oh,
hours,
wow.
and then get up. Because that's the only way you're going to build a portfolio.
Yeah.
If you wanted to build a portfolio, you had to work the midnight oil. You couldn't just say, oh, I'm just, you know.
Yeah, you weren't just going out and
Right.
like living the city
Right.
life. You were really
No, you had to work. So that's how I slowly started building works and finishing images.
Yeah.
So I could have a portfolio to show.
Were you working from photos that like you had taken of your home in Ghana?
I
or-
was working a little bit of both. I think that time I was a little more creative because, you know, I was just doing things, but I was still doing figurative to start. You know? and people had given me photographs to paint them and stuff like that. So I did a lot of that. But you know, I worked from other people's photographs for a little bit, and then when you got wiser, you realized how bad that was. You know, because somebody would say, you know, when you work from some other artist's work, you're copying the mistakes. You know, so you got to figure out not to. When you see something you like, yes, let me sketch this, but can you read it and know this does not look right or whatever it is? Because you never know. You know,
right?
If you don't know.
Right.
And you're sketching something that's from another artist, you're taking everything that is good and bad, you know. So, but anyway, so I learned to really produce a few pieces. Then I moved to Chicago. I did a show in Chicago, and then I made $600. That was one night. I was like, whoa.
I'm sure, yeah. It like in the late '80s.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a ton.
Oh, I'm like, I'm done. I'm moving to Chicago. So I packed my bags.
It was like more immediate success there in Chicago.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I did not know what DC was about. If I'd known how to stay, but you know, that's hindsight. It's 2020.
Right.
So anyway,
And you want to move your way around and explore different cities and everything.
But Chicago was, when I first got there, I mean, it's not when I first, Chicago was still huge. But when I got there, being from Ghana, and you see this city, so I had a chance to do a show there before, and so after I did the show, and then that's when I said, I'm going to move. So I went back to the museum. But when you see the city, it's so huge.
Yeah.
You know, whatever you want, you can get, you know. Get all the supplies you want as an artist. Everything you need to paint with, you can find. Seriously. So I did that for 10 years. And that's when I used to paint that style, you know, where half of it is abstract and half of it is real.
Yeah. Is that a screen print?
That's a screen print,
okay.
But initially it was a painting, just painted just like that.
Got it.
And I did that for, you know, because I wanted to create my own style, my own thing, and I felt that if you wanted to be great, that you have to have your own style.
Yeah.
Like Picasso had the.
It has a very
Cubism.
like 80s feel to it. Just something about the shapes.
Well, what I did was I used the muscle tones to break them up.
Yes.
Break their body up, and
I'll
also the
post a photo of
shadows.
this one we're talking about. I'll post a photo. So
Yeah,
it's the one of the three women.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I broke it down through the shadows and how the light hid. Same thing. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like delineating it out into big chunks of color.
Yes,
Yeah.
right,
I don't know.
right.
There's something neat about
And then
it.
half of the same thing being realistic, where their fabric is more, you know. But this piece also started a little bit backwards for me because I did not, you know, when you're self-taught, you just do what you want to do. And when I started working on this piece, I did the background first. And after I finished the background, I'm like, oh, we got a problem. Because, like, I got to fit colors that match everything else now. So the ladies, the original colors they had on was different from this. So I took that and I had to find this fabric and then just...
Yeah, you worked yourself into a corner
Yes.
of how to finish it.
Yes.
Okay. So when you did this version, the screen print, you could control it more.
Well, we did and we
Beginning.
didn't, but you know, I kept it the same way because once you make the design and you're going back to cut it, you know, I separated it by hand. So when I'm separating the stuff, you know, I knew exactly what to follow, what to do, and all this stuff because it took me a long time to learn how to screen print. I mean, when I first started to do screen prints, I went to this guy in Chicago and I was like, "Can you do a screen print? Can you print for me?" He says, "Yeah." So what do you do? He says, "Well, this the piece you want." Yeah. He says, "Go back and do a positive of each color, and then bring it back." I'm like, "Okay." So I took it. I went back home and I did an outline of each image, and I took it back to him. He like, "Oh no, dude. You don't get it, do you?" Like, "What are you talking about? You said it. You make it. Here it is."
Yeah, he should have made it clear.
Yeah. He says, "Well, you got to draw a positive of each color." I go, snap. So, you know.
So you went away again.
Yeah, I went again. And when I did it, he showed me the bullets, you know, that everything has to line up and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I did that. And that was...
And that teaches you when you're doing something that way, you're gonna make it simpler than
Right.
than a painting because if every single one has to be separated out, you're gonna.
And then when you're painting, you don't understand that the nuances, the subtle changes become more costly.
Right. Every single one of this is another like passive ink.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I had to really. So when I was there's a piece behind you right there. It's called you see the dancer on the floor in the black and white.
Okay.
You know, that one was the first piece I did, and from then a couple of months later, or maybe 2 or 3 years later, we did Freedom Dance. That was done during the release of Nelson Mandela from prison, 1990. So that was called Freedom Dance.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was such a nice experience because that's 12 colors, and it drove me crazy.
That's a lot,
It is,
right?
yes.
What is the normal amount of colors that people usually shoot for in screen printing?
You know, I don't know. Maybe easily black and white, or maybe 5 or
a couple colors,
6, maybe 7 colors. You know.
So this was very ambitious.
It was ambitious. I was. When you come into this country and you're by yourself, listen, you shooting for the moon.
Oh yeah.
And if you miss, you be among the stars. You just shoot, you know.
That's nice.
So that's all was the drive, was to find, you know. I realized that I was selling a lot of reproductions. And I realized that. And the reproductions I was selling for like $40, $45. But I realized that it took me the same amount of time to convince somebody to buy a piece for $45 as it would take me to convince them to buy an original screen
Really?
print. Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, because when you're selling an original, it's a different price point. It's a different mentality.
Yeah.
They know that this is an original piece again, whereas this is a reproduction. It's a 4-color process. It's not going to. In 6 months, in 2 years, it's going to yellow. You know. Whereas in the silk screen, it's 100% as a free rag. I printed it. It's all hand pulled. It's an original. It's a different mentality. I mean, right now, I get people calling me every day and they says, "Oh, I bought this print from you 25 years ago. It's signed." I'm like, "Well, it's a reproduction. It's not going to. There's no value in it." And they always think that they bought it back then. After now, they could get something.
They're calling you to see if they'd be able to resell it?
Yes, and the value has increased. And my thing is a reproduction.
Yeah.
A reproduction. It's like a poster is a poster is a poster.
Also, you paid, what?
$45.
So 20 years ago, they paid $45. Like, you've more than gotten your enjoyment out of that thing. That's crazy. If you bought a T-shirt 20 years ago, you're not trying to make more money off your T-shirt.
But you see, when it comes to art, everybody's looking for a hidden investment.
Wow.
Like the one that they got and they really made a good one. And when they realize, well, dude, you should have bought an original, then we could be talking. But
well, they can pride themselves on knowing that, like, they bought from an artist back then and they had a good eye and it turned into like this very successful, like, that's what they should be happy about. They did make a good investment.
Yeah. And that's the thing. So
not money wise, but just taste wise. I would feel proud of that.
Yes, this is true. You see that there are not a lot of galleries anymore. They're literally gone. Even major white galleries and black galleries, most of them are all gone. And the ones who do it, they want 50%. I'm not giving 50%. That's been my motto since. I mean, when I was doing it back in the day and doing the reproduction, they were buying it straight off from you, so it was fine. They were buying it. If you want 50%, just buy.
Yeah, you were making your money right away.
Yes, they were buying wholesale, and so it was great. Those days now, everybody wants to just, let me show this for 3 months, and then if that's no, and then you want 50% also.
Right.
No, we're not. I'm not gonna do that. So that's why I do art fairs. Because art fairs is not as instantaneous, but it's the fact that you engage with the customers directly.
Yeah.
And you get a chance to talk to people and share your work. It's a different scenario.
Yeah, it's an intensive that, like, one day or a weekend.
Right.
And it's direct sales, so you're making all the money.
Yes.
It's a lot of physical work and a lot of emotional work.
It is
to do all that.
Yeah, and it's been you have to do a lot. It takes. I've been doing it since, I would say, maybe 1990 or 90, something like that. Yeah. And so it takes a long time to find out where you do well and where it's like, oh, no, I'm not going back there.
Yeah, I mean, there's different levels of art fairs, and then there's different cities and towns. There's different times a year, like different seasons. And then, I mean, it's, and then also, like, by the time as you're doing it now, just the equipment that you have and everything, it's a really long time to build up to having, like, a very professional setup the way you have now.
Yes.
See, I'm sure at the beginning, the way I did. Like, you start out and you have a really crappy setup and you make a little bit of money, and then you're having to invest it back into getting better and better equipment.
And you do, and it's gradual. It's gradual, and it's, I remember I did a show in Chicago, and it rained, and the wind, it tore up a lot. I think I lost my booth and lost some of the work But it's like what you're saying. If you have a good tent, you can avoid those situations. If you don't, you get blown away. And so it takes a while to, I had a crappy tent back then.
Yeah.
That's how you learn.
It's like right when you don't have the money to spare, and that's when your crappy thing gets destroyed.
And then I didn't even have a car, so I had to rely on friends to take me to shows locally, or even, I remember when I first got to Ann Arbor, and I had a van then, but I had just gotten into an accident, so I didn't have a car to get to Ann Arbor. I had a friend drive me to the show and drop me off, and I had to finish the show, do the show, finish it, and find a way back.
Oh my God!
But that was the bottom line. You felt like you had to do it. Just staying still. You're self-employed. What are you gonna do? You can't. This is the best. This is a marketplace waiting for you. You got to go show.
I would think, even if you're in a big city like Chicago and you're in a gallery, but there's only so much foot traffic, and unless you're some huge superstar, you're not just like raking it in with a check every single month.
This is true. And the galleries were, back then it was nice to sell a lot of reproductions, but we did a lot of business that way. But also, it's still the same thing, like you said. Back then it seemed to justify the amount that they wanted, but there's still a lot of galleries that were doing anywhere from 25% all the way up to 50. And so you would like to go to the ones that would do less. So I did do a lot of traffic with a lot of galleries, did a few shows with I opened galleries in Arizona, in California, all throughout the country. I did shows with different galleries.
Oh yeah. And I would imagine. This is way before the internet, so the only way to start expanding to different cities is to do these art fairs in other cities, and that was the only way.
Yeah, and also to drive to these places and do art shows or gallery shows, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, and back then it's still to a large degree today, but back then it was mostly postcards and emails.
Right.
Not even emails, postcards.
Literally a mailer.
A mailer.
Okay, well we're gonna take a break. This is super fascinating. When we get back from the break, I'm gonna get you to Savannah finally.
Okay.
Right? We're gonna on the trip of your life. Okay, so this is Tamara from Arts on the Air, and I'm with William Kwamena-Poh, and we are gonna take a little break.
You are listening to WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul.
Trees are one of Chatham County's most treasured natural resources. Beyond their beauty and cultural significance, the impact of trees are far-reaching and compounding, spanning from economic benefits to health improvements to climate change resilience. Trees are woven into every aspect of our lives. Savannah Tree Foundation protects and grows Chatham County's urban forest through tree planting, community engagement, and advocacy. More information is available at savannahtree.org. This portion of WRUU's programming is brought to you by listeners and by Brighter Day Natural Foods. Brighter Day Natural Foods has been serving Savannah's healthy food and supplement needs since 1978. It is located at the corner of Bull Street and Park Avenue. They have online ordering and curbside delivery available, and now a walk-up window for smoothies, juices, and sandwiches from the deli. They are open from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Sunday. More information can be found at brighterdayfoods.com.
What does it mean when we say that WRUU is a community radio station? It doesn't just mean that we invite the community to create programming. And it doesn't just mean that we're a voice for the community. It also means that we're counting on the community to keep us going. And you are the community. Almost all of our modest budget comes from small annual or monthly donations from listeners like you. You get to enjoy our community-focused programming because many others have stepped forward to do their part. Now do your part by joining our community of listener donors. Go to WRUU.org right now and make a one-time or monthly donation. And thank you for supporting Savannah's community radio station, 107.5 FM.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Arts on the Air. This is Tamara Garvey, and again I'm here with William Kwamena-Poh in his City Market Art Studio. And when we were just talking in the break about bargaining at markets and things, and I did want to ask, because so much of your career is going around to different art fairs and selling face to face, how do you feel when people try to make you an offer on your priced paintings? Like, how do you feel about bargaining on your art?
It's fluid. Sometimes sometimes you're like, okay, I'll do it, and sometimes you're like, no, I'm not going to do it. But you have to set, for me, it's hard sometimes, because you don't want the next person to come behind and you realize you've given somebody a discount on something like that, and so your price,
Yeah.
But if it's a print, and you come in and you want to buy 2 or 3 prints, yeah, I can give you a package.
Yes. That's how I feel too.
Yes.
I could bargain for multiples.
Yes.
Not one.
Yes. But when you come in, people are like, oh, I love this piece. Can you work out something for me? I'm like, you only getting one? He says, yes. Like, well, I'm sorry, I can't do it.
Yeah, that's how I am too.
Because I have these prints. They're like 14 by 18, 11 by 14, and I sell them at $55. Even with the inflation and everything, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna go up. I don't want to go up. The only thing is that back then I used to sell in the package of 3 for $120. They're $55, so you get 3, you get it for $120. Now the only thing that's changed is that I don't do that part anymore.
Okay.
Because inflation has gone up, but people are still suffering. Art is not something that everyday people who want to get a piece of art can afford if you're going to keep increasing them. So my price points are still, with my prints, I still leave them pretty much where they are.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to lose those people who, people
that customer base who can afford that and wants it and is going to support, and you are going to make money off prints.
Right,
so yeah,
right.
Yeah. There's no point
right.
just keep on raising it and having fewer and fewer sales.
It's the originals that you can do whatever you want with that, because I don't paint. Not that I don't paint. I paint just about every day, but I don't paint that fast. I can't paint a piece in a week or 2 weeks.
Right. So your originals have a lot of value because it's a lot of time in them.
Exactly. So because of that, it takes me a long time. So yes, that's why I also do prints, because I need to fill a booth up, and to fill it up, you gotta have prints. And also, if you sell a great piece and then somebody comes in and sees it, it's like, oh wow, I love that piece. Like, okay, is it original or it's a print? Well, original is sold. Oh, I want to. Well, you can't. You can have a print. This is gone.
Yeah.
So that helps circulate more imagery that you didn't have, but also increases the value of the piece that you sold to this person for the original.
Yeah, to that original person.
Because this is the only way that the rest of the community or the rest of the art lovers can see it.
Yeah, it is true. If all you do is originals and you never sell any reproductions of them, then there might be hundreds of people over your lifetime who liked that one image and only one person was ever going to get to have it. That seems kind of weird.
Yeah, like this piece, Tomorrow's Hope. There's this little girl that if you look close in her eyes, the images of fishermen in there, and she's looking very intensely at you. And people just love that look. And then when they even get closer and realize, oh my gosh, there's a painting inside her eyes.
Yeah, it's a little secret.
Yes, and they freak out, and so they love it. So, now it's one of my best-selling pieces, but I also have it in 4 different color backgrounds. So but the editions are small. It's only 75 numbered and signed in each color, so that helps me. I don't like to do huge editions, because when you do that, it indirectly depreciates the value of your work, but not that much. Any edition of less than 1,000 is great, because there's so many people in the world.
Yeah.
But if it's less than 100, it's even much better. And for me, that allows me to keep on working, because if you don't paint fast, and you if you sell fast, which I don't either, then you gotta catch up. But I still want a lot of variety, and when I go to shows, I want to have a different image for every new show that I've been to, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep it up, but I'll try.
When we ended at the break, we were talking about just shows in general. So this was like the early 90s. You started traveling the country and doing art shows, and that was how you were getting your work out to different cities. And then at what point did you arrive in Savannah?
Oh, I arrived in Savannah in '95.
Okay.
I was in Chicago. I had gone to a show I was on my way to a show to Cherry Creek Arts Festival in Denver.
Oh, that's a huge one.
It's a huge
It's like
show.
a national huge
Yes.
show.
And my van, and I had an accident. And my van rolled over and we lost the van, but it's so funny. Only one piece got damaged in the whole truck. So, and then this is on my way, this is in Chicago. Then the second thing that happened was the building that my studio was in Chicago caught on fire and burnt down. So,
Wow.
and my studio was right there and I lost a lot of work and a lot of stuff. But those two signs, like, okay, William, these are signs telling you it's time to get out of Dodge. So I'm like, the third sign may be me in the box. I'm out. So I packed my stuff, and I had a friend who lived here. His name is Emerson, and he had a studio. You know, he is a photographer. He used to, he has a place on Styles in Louisville, and we stayed there. I stayed there with him for 2 years, and then, but when I got here, he told me that, oh, there's a place you can find a studio, and so I came in '96, got me a studio right away in the North Building.
Okay.
And then within the next year, I think it was the same year, the next year, I think it was '96, my friend Ann and I opened up a gallery downstairs. So I moved into a studio into this side, into the north side, the south side.
Wow. Okay, so you had an art studio here, and then you had an actual gallery down
Yes, I did.
on the ground floor.
Yes.
Wow. So you were like really part of the Savannah art scene right away.
But it was a lot of work. I mean, because some people come in, but people came in, and then somebody would call you. People would call William. There's somebody looking at your work, so you have to go back down. And you got to come.
Oh,
back,
go
you
down,
gotta
sell
go back
it.
down, come back down.
I mean, that's kind of fascinating to just
It is
be
fascinating.
able to be up here working, and then
Yes.
somebody just calls you and you run downstairs and
Yes.
sell it.
Yes,
That's wild.
Well, but you didn't sell every time, but that broke your rhythm. That back
Yeah,
and
for
forth
sure,
broke
yeah.
your rhythm. So it's like after a while, I'm like, I can't do this, So I mean, I did it for like.
Also, kind of the whole point of having a studio is that you're sitting here working and people come in and buy
Right.
from you here. So
Mhm.
maybe you don't need both.
Exactly, and it took me a long time, but it was it was really an ego trip on my part. It's an ego trip that, look, I have a gallery and I have this studio, blah blah, and I have a card and I'm going to art shows.
Yeah.
And I'm like, William, you just tripping.
It's just too much.
It's just too much, So just get over it and just work, do your work
Yeah. Narrow
in
it
the
down.
studio, narrow your bills down. You
Well, also,
have to.
yeah, I would think.
It's
I mean,
expensive.
if you've been living in Chicago and it just costs so much, and then you come here to Savannah and the price is just—it's so different. So suddenly you can afford to be renting an art studio. You're renting an actual brick and
Oh,
mortar
but
space.
I
Like
got
you
you.
can have so much more
Yes,
stuff than you can have in
I was
Chicago.
paying a lot more here. I think that it was just I needed clear space. I think that I'd gotten to the ceiling, or I couldn't poke my head through the clouds or whatever it was. Some feeling of being suffocating. I think that's what it was. You build your artistic career or your artistic design or whatever you call it, style, and you reach a certain point and you realize this needs to burst, so this is an embryo, it needs to be birthed. For 10 years you were just actually in the womb being, so now where do you want to go with this? And it's like I used to do both realism and this so-called abstract realism thing together. And at some point I'm like, no, I'd rather do more realism, because I think my father being a historian and me trying to also document indirectly people's lives about Ghana and stuff like that, it needed to be real as real can get in terms of my interpretation of what I see life.
Yeah.
And so I said, I wanted to be more realistic, because that's how I interpret the truth.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess you were doing, just to describe it since it's radio, you do like a figure, and then the background around it is this kind of abstracted shapes.
Right.
And that was when you shifted into doing an entire scene as the painting.
Exactly. But this was also, it was so funny, this piece that we have, it's a lady dance, and I've broken it, and I have two shadows of her behind, so it becomes a triptych kind of thing. And my art instructor back then told me that diagonal lines create movement, and I took it literally. So I drew these,
so you have stripes.
these stripes of diagonal lines
Painted stripes. Yeah.
And then the circles of different colors of primary colors.
There's like a diagonal line of polka dots.
Yes. But it makes you feel like she's dancing, the movement, because and it was, what he actually meant was that when you look at people and their arms are sideways, but if their arms are falling straight, then there's no diagonal. If their arms are sideways or moving as they talk, then they go into a diagonal shape.
Yeah.
And that is what he's talking about. Look at people from a diagonal. You look at the picture, break it down, look at it, and that. Once I got that,
yeah, it was a little more subtle. Yeah, so the way she's standing, her arms are in a diagonal line. And like she's standing with her weight more on one foot than the other. So her hips are diagonal, and then her feet are diagonal. Yeah, you happen to have also put in the diagonal stripes. You did a lot.
I just double. I double did it.
Okay, so cool. So that was so once you arrived in Savannah was when you shifted into this like newer, this more contemporary version of the paintings.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah, and it was different because I did not. Or for me, I never wanted to paint realistically. I just wanted to paint. But the people look at me and says, "Oh, your works is very real. Looks like photographs." It's never the intention. It was just that that's all. If I'm looking at a photograph and I'm working from the photograph, I want it to be as good as the photograph.
Yeah.
But that does not mean I'm trying to be photorealistic. I'm interpreting, because when I go to Ghana, if I see a scene, by the time I set up my easel and start painting, half of the scene would have changed. So the best thing to do is to capture it as quickly as you can with the shots, and then when you come here, you're still trying to replicate that, again in your studio,
Yeah, I mean, some of your paintings, sometimes it's like a figure with kind of a simple background behind it, but then you have these really elaborate marketplace scenes that I'm sure this takes you forever, where it's like the netting with tons
it does.
All the boats and ropes and stuff.
It does. But again, you're trying to convey a story about a scene. You want to convey it in such a way that the humanity of the person can come out, or the people in there, and the reality of their existence can be seen. And so to do that, everything has to be real and clean, and because Americans, everything is based on, making decisions based on what you see. So you show what the life is like there, and so people can see it a little bit better than think, oh, where do you guys live? Do you guys live in huts? Do you do this? It's like, no, we have concrete buildings, we have, all these solid buildings. So
you're like a documentarian.
Yes, exactly.
So when you started doing these more realism scenes, was your father still alive then?
Oh, yes.
Did he get to see your
yes, he did.
What did he think of your work?
He loved the work.
Yeah.
He loved the work. I took a few home and left them with him. He loved it.
So we haven't really talked about super technical in your work, but you work in gouache, is that right? Gouache on paper?
Yes, I do.
How did you arrive at that of all the paint? I feel like that's the most obscure paint. Nobody knows anything about gouache.
Well, it is, and to a large degree too, my usage of it, discovering gouache is the same thing, very obscure. I was in Birmingham, and that's when I was, I'd finished college and I was trying to find paint, because I wanted to paint watercolor. So, because I knew I didn't like canvas, because I don't like the bounce of canvas. I didn't like acrylic and oils, because I did not like the bounce of the canvas. With stretch canvas, I just couldn't do it. So I wanted to work on paper. So I went to the art store, and I saw all these watercolor set colors, and I wanted to buy them. And there was some watercolor that said gouache, and the other watercolor said, something else. But the gouache tube was this big, and the watercolor tube was half the size of the gouache tube.
Yeah.
And cost more. It was like twice as much. That little bit skinny watercolor tube was twice as much as this.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I'll take the gouache brand.
Okay.
It's cheaper.
Just for money.
Just because, that's
but
what it's cheap.
The watercolor you're gonna water down a lot, right? Like you only use a tiny amount.
But I did not know that.
Okay.
All I knew was that this was a lot more.
Yeah.
This cost less. That one cost more, and I don't want to pay more for that.
So you started out with gouache, and then you just were into it.
And I always kept on going for the gouache.
Okay.
I did not know it was watercolor. I did not know it was opaque watercolor.
Yeah.
I thought they were all transparent. I thought they were. I did not know watercolor was transparent and opaque. All I knew was this costs less.
Yeah.
And I'll buy the gouache.
Yeah, nobody
less.
knows anything about gouache. It's so weird and obscure,
Yeah.
right?
And I just kept on working with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like when you talked about that you didn't like the bounce of canvas, so you were using paper. Did you ever try panels? Was that everything?
Now I'm thinking more about it, but back then I didn't do it.
Yeah.
I didn't because
Maybe that wasn't as popular of a surface.
It wasn't like masonite boards. They were not back then. It was more.
Yeah.
Or just canvas. I think my art instructor also worked on canvas. So that's where my.
Yeah, I feel like if I think about in the 80s, it's like everybody just worked on canvas,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Do you know Angela Burson in town?
Yes, I do.
So I interviewed her recently, and this came up, and it was so interesting. Where she has always worked on panels, and then because her work is like very flat and hard, and
Right.
the lines and edges. But recently, she started doing really, really big pieces, and she realized that working on panels has been, like it gets very heavy,
Right.
really heavy, so it's expensive and hard to move, and so she's thinking about getting out. Like she always has done panels for years, but now because of the size thing, is trying to work on canvas just because if you had to, you could just take it off. You could roll it and ship it internationally or something. So like, yeah, it's funny to think like she's been doing it for decades. It's one way, and then suddenly you start a different thing, and I feel like the size issue is what makes people change into different things. Because I always worked on paper too, and then during the pandemic, I decided I wanted to start working bigger, so I kind of switched to canvas as well. Because paper is weird, where the size of the paper can be big, but then you have to think about framing it and the glass, and it gets expensive and it gets heavy.
True.
So
this is true.
it's like with any of the ones that you pick, it's hard. There's pluses and minuses to all of them.
There is. In fact, I had a client that recently I went to, and they were trying to buy one of my pieces, and they said, well, where they wanted. So I took pieces there, and we put it in their house. They put one up, and the water was right there, but there was so much reflection.
Yeah.
And on the pieces, so they're like, would you consider doing a canvas print of this? And I said, yeah, it's a print, and you have to satisfy clientele. It's a different scenario when, because sometimes we get our ego trip going crazy thinking, oh, I'm an artist, I don't do canvas.
Right, it's just my vision.
It's my
paper.
vision.
Yeah.
It's like, dude,
Yeah.
at this point, it's business. You have to separate the business from the art part, from the glorified craziness in your head.
Your original way you did it.
And just look at the business. Once you decide to sell something now, it's no longer art. It's business. It's a transaction.
Yeah, and that aspect that they brought up about the reflection of the glass, that might be a thing where, like they're buying it to have it in their house, and so there's different concerns. Like, and once they say that to you, you're like, oh, that's true. If you want something in your house, maybe the reflection wouldn't bother you. Yeah.
So I said, we can do that. We just have to be a small edition, maybe an edition of 5 or edition of 2.
That you get it printed on canvas. Yeah, because I'm looking around at your ones, even the one you described with the girl with the intense gaze, and it's a print, so it's at a certain price point.
Right.
But it's big and it's framed behind glass, so that makes the price point has to jump up a certain amount just because of the framing and all that.
It has. Now, particularly, most of my bigger pieces are framed with plexi.
Okay.
So it takes up a little bit more space in terms of the plexi costs a little bit more. A sheet of plexi wholesale nowadays is over close to plus $100, maybe $150, $200.
It costs a little more than glass.
Oh yes.
Okay, but
Plexi.
yeah, it doesn't break.
No, because the plexi I'm getting also is UV plexi.
Oh, got it.
Yes.
Yeah, and there's always different like technical innovations in glass. I found too. I used to work at a frame store years ago, and then museum glass was a new thing, which looks amazing. And there's nothing, you can't see it at all. There's no reflection, but it was exorbitantly expensive.
It is, and it still is.
And, didn't come very big, so
it still is.
There's nothing is perfect.
Yeah. You're right. So that's the thing with glass and the reflection.
Yeah.
If you're painting on paper, you always have to deal with it with that.
Yeah.
Or you could go on panels. They have now different clay surfaces.
Yes.
That you can paint watercolor onto some of these.
I love those. They're like ampersand panels.
Yes.
Where the surface is.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm still old fart. I haven't gotten bold yet, but I'm thinking about it.
You never know.
You never know.
Right.
Yeah. It's a matter of space also, because when it's paper, you can always flexible on the but when it's card, it's a board, it's like You got to be careful where you put it. I like doing shows. I like traveling, and you have to get everything you need. I've got a nice sized van. I've got a transit, so it helps me carry all my load.
And you have a very professional setup with the walls.
I've got that.
Walls and everything.
I've got that. I've got everything breaks down, but I've got. I bought a new tent last year. I bought a 15 by 10 tent.
Okay, so now you're at the stage where you're getting bigger spaces.
Yes.
Like a double space.
Yes,
something?
a double space.
It's like you have your own pop-up gallery at this point. Like
I do.
Elaborate thing.
And the thing is that one thing I like about the 10 by 20 is sometimes you don't put a lot of work in it. You put about the same amount as you put in 10 by 10. The difference, however, is that pieces get a chance to breathe.
Yeah.
And people can actually see the work.
Stand back.
And stand back.
Yeah, do you think that helps?
And
like if you're selling at a certain price point,
yes.
It helps for that.
Yes.
That's
yes.
very interesting.
Yes. So, yeah, it's a nice way to do shows. Be comfortable. In the next couple of years, in the next year, I need to cut down shows because I have a show scheduled in 2025 in the museum in Michigan that I have to get ready for.
Oh, wow.
Yes, so I have to slow down but speed up. Slow down in terms of the shows that I'm doing so I can create more time, more work to paint.
Yeah.
Or take my work with me because I have a bigger van and, work a little bit, but...
That's kind of asking a lot to be...
It is asking a lot, but at the end of the day, that is what happens. When necessity demands that you should reorganize or plan better, you have to, if you want to make it work.
Artists work so hard, yeah.
Yes.
This is kind of personal, but so you have the show coming up at a museum in Michigan, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Is there like any kind of guaranteed income from that, or only if they then decide to acquire some of your pieces for their permanent collection?
There's no guaranteed income, and I think that from my perspective, I'll call myself an outsider artist, because I'm not doing any galleries. I don't have any gallery representation who's trying to say, okay, we're going to blow you up, we can do this. Because basically, I think that due to everything that we've discussed, they just want too much and all this stuff. But this allows me to be seen differently, and the people that are the images that I'm doing is to also change mentalities. So if I get a chance to show and have it in a place for 3 months or 6 months, then we get people who can actually, they know that we're coming to see this. But you can sell, indirectly through your channels and stuff like that. But, what I'm planning to do is just make sure that we present a whole body of work that is very cohesive. And right now I'm going to be working on food images of market women, images of people in them, and especially also the fishermen, because the fisherman ties everything, because you're fishing for food, or you're fishing to feed. So that is one thing. Then there's another piece here with this lady. It's called Some Like It Hot, and then there's an okra lady, and then there's this piece that I'm working on also.
That'll be nice to have a more specific theme in them, and then and the titles can be kind of playful.
Yes. So I'm trying to build that and make sure that we all have similar things. So I was telling, I said it in my last this series, the Amazon series that's coming out, that we all eat the same food, we just cook it differently. So it's the same thing. We all eat mangoes, we eat whatever it is, we eat rice. Rice is the biggest worldwide.
Yeah, worldwide.
But sometimes we have rice balls that we make in Ghana, so, and it's different. It's similar to maybe the way the Japanese use rice on sushi, how they just form the shape.
Oh, yeah.
So it's sticky. Yeah, sticky rice, and we make a sticky ball rice.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all different.
And you mentioned for a second, I want you to talk about, you have a show on Amazon that's about to come out of artists in Savannah. Is that right?
Yes.
Can I talk about that for a second?
Yes, there was last year Amazon Films came down and filmed 5 artists here. Emily Earl, Nikisha Jones, Luciana Spraka, is that how you pronounce her name? She works for the city archivist, and Susie Chisholm, and myself. So they filmed all of us, and they said it will come out in the first quarter of this year, and it just came out.
Amazing.
Just came out this week.
What is it called?
It's called The Story of Art in America, Season 2. And the first episode is about Savannah artists.
I love it.
Yes, it's streaming now on Amazon.
Amazing. And
Yeah.
how cool, you're one of the 5 people that they picked. I love that.
I
what a
know.
cool cross-section of people.
Oh gosh,
that is.
it was just, it's one of those things that happened because, you know, they made clear what they were looking for. They were looking for all kinds of artists, you know, not just white artists, but just general artists from everywhere. So that
they pick different forms of art,
different
which is
forms
cool.
of art,
Yeah.
you know. So,
Well, congrats
City
on
Market.
that.
Thank you.
I can't even imagine how much broader. I mean, what a broad audience you're.
Oh
getting from
gosh,
that.
yes, that's all we need. You know, like I sent a few to friends of mine that says we got a boost. You know, that's it is. You get a boost.
God.
You get that. You get that. Is it 15 seconds of fame? You get more than
Yeah,
that.
extend that.
Yeah.
And okay, so I could talk to you forever. There's so much interesting things to say, but I just finally wanted to wrap it up. You in was it 2019 to 2020? You had a show at the Jepson in their Art 912 space, right? You had a solo show, which was beautiful. Do you want to? I mean, that must have felt so amazing to like be living in Savannah for what 20 years now, and then you have a show at the Jepson. So cool.
It was wonderful, and it's still like the highlight of my career. You know, at the end of the day, we all it's like, you know, just like any actor wants to get an Oscar, and every musician wants to get a Grammy or the other lower level awards and stuff like that you collect as you keep on working, and the highlight, because what museums do is that they present what they classify as the best in those categories for people to see. You know, so it's nice to get a chance to be able to show your work and to show that you're consistent. You know, because it takes, you know, sometimes you can do 5 great pieces, but can you consistently keep working to show the quality and the level that you of quality of work? You know,
I'm sure they had to keep their eye on you for years and years and years before they decide to extend this invitation to you.
It was wonderful. It was
That's
wonderful,
very
and
cool.
I'm very humbled by that. You know, because it makes you want to work harder. It really does, because. And that's the thing. You either go one of 2 ways. You go crazy, or you have to work harder to keep the quality of what you're doing. You know.
And I think it was my friend Erin Dunn who curated it. That show, right? Yeah.
Okay.
I interviewed her for the show as well.
Okay. Fantastic.
I love this.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, William. This has been amazing. Are there any kind of final words you want to say to anyone? About directions you're going in, or?
Well, I just feel like what I'm trying to do is it's. This guy's name is Craig Hadley. He's the director of the museum at the Dennos Museum, and we were discussing the possibility of the show. His thing was, you bring a worldwide perspective, you know, which it makes me feel good, because we are getting to a point where we are indirectly a global village, you know. So you can't hop from here to here, but the opportunities are a lot easier, but they seem to be getting even a lot tighter with the craziness of that, what's going on with the US and China and all these geo-global issues that are happening throughout, you know, the Middle East, and also with Russia. So we must as well enjoy what we have right now, and let those who bring us a little bit of it, the world, see it from that perspective. If we can still go, let's go see. Because the only way we can make change in this world is you go visit these different places.
Yes.
And see them.
And see, the differences and the similarities.
Yes, and the cultures, and, you know, we all wear clothes. We sometimes wear them very differently, but we all, you know, same thing, the same fabrics, you know, cotton, whatever you want to call them. But we wear them differently. It doesn't make us crazy.
Right.
It just makes you uniquely different. That's it.
Yeah, your work is really, I guess, dispelling a lot of myths that people might have.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, this has been wonderful. I really liked finally meeting you face to face after admiring your studio.
I appreciate it. Thanks
so,
for
yeah,
coming.
everybody, if you want to come visit him in person, he's in the south side of the City Market Studios, upstairs, real
Studio
central
8.
location. Thank you, William.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up on WRUU, That Old Savannah Magic from 4 to 6 p.m. It's a variety show featuring Savannah history, radio theater, interviews, and music.
You are listening to WRUU LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with a global soul.